Well, hey, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for this Saturday installment of Open Mic, the show where the mic is open, the floor is yours. What are the things you guys want to talk about? That is what we are here to discuss. Glad you guys are joining me today on this Saturday afternoon. Good to have all you guys here. And so here's how the show goes. We are simply going to take your comments and questions and get into the topics you guys want to talk about. The way you get in a question is by using the super chat feature in the live chat. So send on in a super chat. The super chats are currently open. I'll leave them open for a little while longer. I'll let you know when I'm about to turn them off. And send them on in. And as long as they're appropriate for us to address in the show, I'll address it here on the show. Good to have all you guys here. After not having a show on Friday, producer Jonathan, I still want to call him fact checker Jonathan, but the proper term for Jonathan Voico now is, of course, producer Jonathan. Producer Jonathan had some family business he needed to take care of. We knew about it long in advance that he had to do something on Friday. So at the last minute, I just kind of decided, you know what, let's just take the day off. I deserve it. Ray deserves it. So we decided to take the day off. And we didn't have a show yesterday, but we are back here now today. Good to have you guys here. And got to let you guys know about something that I put up a post about this in the community tab. By the way, guys, if you're not checking regularly in our community tab, you should check in on it once in a while. We do post announcements and some fun things in there. Make sure you go check it out. But I've noticed a bunch of comments about the haircut. Yes, I was in desperate need of a haircut. Went and got my haircut this weekend. Very happy that I did. A lot easier for me to maintain it now. So I'm going to let you guys know about a little change that's happening on Monday, at least for a few weeks. My friend Paris Rose is going to be joining the show Mondays through Thursdays for a few weeks, probably for about a month or so, to help us get a format kind of rolling the way I like my format to go. Now, look, information is information. But information is better communicated when it's formatted right? Like you can bring up a screen of just pure text, right? And all the information may be in there. But if you come to a document that has proper headers, blocked pieces of information, perhaps properly color-coded, all that kind of stuff, when the format is right and the presentation of information is better, then information becomes more effective and more entertaining, I think. And you guys know for a couple of years, I've really wanted to get back to the kind of format that I used to have on AMC and Collider, because you guys remember the great Ashley Mova, Sinead Dufries, those great iconic hosts we used to have, where the format, when you have a good format where you have somebody, a good presenter, initially starting off a segment with telling you the basic information of the story, and then you cut over to the commentators like myself, the videos just flow smoother. The videos are better. They work better. They're smoother. They have higher energy. Now, we tried to do this about a year and a half ago when we brought on Alu and Kaylee. They were great. And they were working out wonderful. Of course, the problem that we ran into, me and Alu and Kaylee ran into, was that for good reasons, Alu and Kaylee's schedules were just really busy. And it turns out they did not have enough free time to do the show. And then even though we had two of them, we were going days at a time sometimes without a host. And so we just pulled the plug on the whole thing because it wasn't working. Well, my friend Paris is going to come in and help us do that. Paris comes to us with a wonderful background. She's worked at Lionsgate. She's done work with AEW. She's an entertainment correspondent for BET. She works with another outlet called The Nocturnal. And she's just a wonderful, dynamic, fantastic host. So Friday, you guys didn't know, but on our Thursday show, I should say, on Thursday's show, Paris was actually sitting in the studio with us. Off camera, just to get a sense of the show. Then Ann and I went to go have lunch with her afterwards to see if she'd be willing to come on and help us for a few weeks to a month to really get our format in place. And so starting Monday, Paris will be coming in and helping us out, and you guys can go and find her. I'll put her Instagram in the live chat right now. You guys should go and follow her on Instagram and give her a big hello. It's at Paris, Parise Rose. There it is. I just put it in the live chat for those of you guys who are watching live. So go over, follow her on Instagram, and give her a big hello. I know you guys are going to love her on the show. I know I'm going to love having her on the show. I think the show segments are going to flow a lot better, have higher energy, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm very, very excited about that. So once again, she's going to be joining us for about a month or so from Mondays to Thursdays. And of course, on Fridays, the wonderful and delightful Chris Carr will be in. All right. With all that down, guys, let's get into a little introductory topic I wanted to discuss here, which is went to go see A Quiet Place Day One the other day. Really liked it. I had a very, very good time with it. I don't think it's as good as the other two Quiet Place movies. It lacks certain depth that the other ones have, but I still thought it was great. Lupita Nyong'o was fantastic in it. Joseph Quinn was really good in it. It was legitimately tense and terrifying. I would have liked it if maybe we used this third movie to learn a little bit more about the monsters. And really, we didn't get anything new about them, which is fine. The movie's really good. I had a very good time with it. Big thumbs up from me. The third best of the three Quiet Place movies, but really good nonetheless. But here's the key thing, though. The Hollywood Reporter put out a story this morning saying that the movie is now, after it's Thursday night and Friday box office takes, they're saying this movie is going to have a $53 million opening. For those of you keeping score, that would make it the biggest opening of the Quiet Place franchise at a $53 million opening. That got me thinking about the box office and the state of the box office in total. Because look, like Rob and I would talk about a lot back in 2023 when the strikes were going on, we were saying in the show back then, you guys saw it, a lot of you guys were saying the same thing, that the first part of 2024 is going to be, for the box office, a disaster, right? We were literally going weeks at a time without major movies coming out. The strikes really threw everything off. A lot of big projects got delayed. Other projects moved release dates, and it just left for this barren wasteland of the first half of 2024. And sure enough, we have seen some of the results of that, right? But a lot of you guys were saying, and we were saying too, that the second half of 2024 is where we're going to really see things come into play. Are the things at the box office really as bad? Because here's the thing. We as movie fans, and I include all of us, we're all guilty of this. There's no just one group of people we can point our finger at. We're all kind of guilty of this as movie fans. We as movie fans have a very short-term memory, right? We allow our short-term memory to dictate our long-term vision. In other words, we think what happened yesterday is indicative of what will happen for the next 5 years. Do you understand what I'm saying? We as movie fans tend to have that thing. We allow our short-term memory to dictate our long-term view. So what happened last week, that tells us what's going to happen for the next 5 years. That's how we kind of think of things. So when something goes really good, like an R-rated movie does really well, we as movie fans go, all movies should be R-rated now. See, R-rated movies make big money. It's like, well, yeah, if we just look at this month, but if you look at a historical context, yeah, sometimes R-rated movies do really well, but more times than not, R-rated movies don't. And so we see that Mad Max Furiosa does terribly at the box office. We see that Fall Guy does terribly at the box office. Both of those are good movies, by the way. They're both really good movies. But they did terribly at the box office. So what did if you went anywhere in the movie sphere online, what was the conversation? The box office is doomed. The movie theaters are dead. Everything's terrible. The sky is falling. Cats and dogs sleeping together. It was cataclysmic, right? Because we had a couple of weeks of admittedly some pretty terrible box office results, something that we all kind of knew was coming. So I thought we would take a second here and discuss, well, what's been happening recently now that we've gotten into the next part of the year. Let's take a look at this. How has the box office now been responding and rebounding? Well, we're going to go back a few weeks too. And we're going to start off with looking at something like Dune Part 2, of course, was this year. This movie that we told everybody is not a 4-quadrant movie, is not going to have big, wide appeal, and all that kind of stuff. But it was still, I think, the best movie of the last 10 years. I still stand by that. I don't think there has been a better movie in movie theaters in the last 10 years than Dune Part 2. You don't have to agree, but that's just my thing. Made $711 million. Blew away the previous film's box office, which we knew it would. Kung Fu Panda 4 became one of the highest grossing of the franchise, making $543 million. One of the best that the franchise had. Godzilla x Kong became the #1 box office film of its entire MonsterVerse franchise. That includes Godzilla, Kong Skull Island, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla vs. Kong, and now Godzilla x Kong actually end up making more money at the box office than any other MonsterVerse movie. Planet of the Apes. Now, we may look at $387 million, admittedly, say, well, that doesn't seem all that good. But I want you to think about this. At $387 million, this Planet of the Apes movie that just came out recently was only about $100 million off what the last Planet of the Apes movie made, War for the Planet of the Apes. And there had been a big gap of time between these movies, and they had moved past the characters that we knew. It wasn't Caesar anymore, all that kind of stuff. And I think for that movie to come out and do 387 is actually pretty respectable. Well, of course, now we're talking about Inside Out, right? Inside Out 2. By the end of the weekend, I put it in 1 billion. It's not at 1 billion yet. Today it crossed 900 million. But by the end of the weekend, they're projecting it's going to officially be a $1 billion film. Something that nobody thought was going to happen with Inside Out. Nobody thought Inside Out 2, including me, by the way. I admit it. I thought Inside Out 2 would be a hit. I did not think it would join the $1 billion club. Nobody did. And here we are. Inside Out 2 is joining the $1 billion club. And now, A Quiet Place 3, The Hollywood Reporter is writing in their headline today, is going to hit $53 million by the end of the weekend, which will officially make it the largest opening for any of the Quiet Place movies. And it's still counting. Now, on top of that, we look forward to movies like Deadpool, Joker 2, Despicable Me 4, Moana 2, Mufasa, and a few other outliers. There are still a lot of films coming out in this part of the year that have the potential to be really big box office films. A couple of these could also be $1 billion films. I think Deadpool will be a $1 billion film. I think Despicable Me 4, I don't know, but I'm guessing. I'm just going to take a guess. I'm going to guess that Despicable Me 4 will also be a $1 billion film. Moana was the #1 streaming movie in the country last year, so it's got a shot. Moana 2 has a shot of being a $1 billion film. The last Lion King movie made over $1 billion, so Mufasa's got a chance. I don't think, by the way, just for the record, I think Mufasa's going to come in around 600 million, which will be great. But there are a lot of people that think Mufasa has a chance of being a $1 billion film. Anyway, all this is to say that everything is kind of shaping up the way a lot of you guys said yourselves, and we said on this show as well, and a lot of other people said that, yes, the first half of 2024 looked very grim. Absolutely it did. No getting around it, no sugarcoating it. But a lot of you guys said it's the second half of 2024. The box office is not dead. People still love going to the movies. when the movies are there for us to actually go to. Now, we're still going to get some big flops and disappointments like Furiosa, like Fall Guy. Again, it's a real shame because those movies are great. I loved both of those movies, but still did terribly at the box office. Yeah, we're still going to get those. And not every movie is going to be an Inside Out 2 that blows away all expectations. But I think when we look at what we've, like some of the, samples we've had this year already. And by the way, you know what else I didn't put on there? Bad Boys. Bad Boys has crossed $300 million. It had one of the biggest openings of its franchise. Bad Boys did quite well. So when you look at like, even just recently, you're looking at Godzilla X Kong, Inside Out 2, Quiet Place 3. We got some big things coming. I mean, I think while we are definitely not back to 2019 numbers yet, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we're right back to pre-pandemic. I'm not saying that at all. We're not. But I think the second half of 2024 has already begun and is shaping up to show us that, you know what, the box office hasn't gone anywhere. Yeah, we had the after effects of the writers and actors strikes. Yes, and that hurt. And we're still not 100% out of the recovery of the whole pandemic stuff either. We're most of the way out, but we're not 100% there yet. There are still some people who say they have still not started going back to the movie theater since the pandemic. It's still a thing. But I think when you actually sit back and look at the data, I think it shows us that the box office is back. Now, who knows? Maybe Deadpool 3 ends up flopping. I highly doubt it, but maybe it does. And then we have to have a whole new discussion. But I think things look good right now. I think we got a lot of big things coming down the pipe. So I think we're in for a really good, I think the box office is in for a really good run. And hopefully Deadpool and Wolverine doesn't suck and kill its chances. I'm still hoping it's going to be great, but we'll see where it goes. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about all this? About, the box office, the way it seems to have rebounded, the fact that we're having some movies coming out that are breaking their own franchises records, the fact that we have Inside Out 2 breaking all kinds of records, everything in between. Do you think the box office is back? Or maybe you're somebody who maybe understandably needs a little bit more convincing. Whatever you guys think, jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's get to the real reason we're here, shall we? Which is to take your live comments and questions. So let's get things going with that right now. And we're going to get started off here with Kyle Schneider, who writes, "Hey, John, 6 episodes into The Bear Season 3. It's really good. Not as stellar as Seasons 1 and 2. Have you started watching, and what do you think?" I have not had a chance to start watching it yet. My wife, Anne, binged watched the entire season in one day. Anne loves The Bear. Want to know something funny? This is true. Anne came running out because she went into our game room to watch The Bear. She basically, quarantined herself in the game room to watch The Bear all day. And around 10 o'clock at night, she comes walking out of the game room. I'm in the living room. She comes walking out and the dogs come walking with her because wherever she goes, the dogs go. She comes walking out of the bedroom and she's still in her pajamas and she's got this angry look on her face. And she's like, "The Bear has no ending." I'm like, what are you talking about, baby? Remember, I haven't seen the new season yet. She goes, "It doesn't actually end. How can you have this series finale and have it not have an ending, not have a proper ending?" I'm like, "Series finale? You mean season finale?" She's like, "This isn't the final season?" I'm like, "No. Who told you this was the final season? Where did it ever say anywhere?" She goes, "I thought I heard this was the final season." I'm like, "No." So she was quite perturbed at how the season ended because she thought that was it. She thought it was like the end of it. So then she felt much better. She went from being very angry to feeling much, much better after that. She goes, "Oh, okay. Well, in that case, the season was great." So I haven't had a chance to start watching it yet myself, but Anne's already binge watched the whole thing. I love this show, so I'll be getting on it soon, but I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. Side rant. I hate, with a capital H, now when they drop entire seasons at once. I hate it. There's no way to build up anticipation between episodes. There's no way you can talk to your friends about it because everybody's going to see, like my wife's already watched the entire season. I haven't watched a single episode yet. If it was a proper release schedule, like a week-to-week schedule, like Ann could have watched the first episode, and then in, a day or two, I can watch the first episode. Then we can talk about it. We can, get excited about the next week's episode. Now it's dropped all at once. Everybody's going to talk about The Bear for the next 3 or 4 days, and then no one's going to talk about it because that's what happens when shows drop all at once. I really don't like it. I don't like it at all. As a matter of fact, it's kind of turned me off a little bit from going and watching it. Like, here's the thing. If it was the first episode of the new season had dropped, I would feel like this urge, like I got to go watch it as soon as I can, so I can make sure I watch it and then me and everybody else can talk about it and blah, 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 right? And I'm not saying I'm right or wrong to feel this way. I'm just saying this is the way I feel. It might be right, it might be wrong, but it's the way I feel. So knowing that the whole season dropped now, I don't feel any urgency like I got to run out and watch it. Everybody's already seen it. So it's not like I can get caught up. It's not like I can talk to people about it. It's not like, if it was one episode that came out, I would feel an urgency like I need to watch it. Like when the first couple of episodes of The Boys dropped, I felt this urgency like I had to go see it. Knowing that the whole season dropped, I just kind of like, I'll get around to it whenever. Like, and I can't explain why I feel that way, but it's kind of how I feel. It's just like, okay, well, the whole season dropped. All right. I guess I'll get around to it at some point. But I don't feel the need. I'm more focused on watching the things coming out week to week now. Not The Acolyte anymore. I tapped out of that. But I mean, we've got House of the Dragon. We've got The Boys. There's a few other things I'm watching. So yeah, anyway, so Ann has watched it. She loved it. I haven't had a chance to start watching it yet. Okay, next up, we've got Matthew Welchel, who sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Matthew, for supporting us on that level, man. Really appreciate that. He writes, the Jurassic Park / World movies are my Star Wars. I acknowledge Jurassic Park 3 is garbage. Instead of Jurassic Park City, I would remake Lost World and make it as close to, well, then nobody would go to see it. Just so you know, Matthew, nobody would go to see it if you just remake a movie that was just out a couple of years ago. By the way, a movie that made $1 billion. Anyway. I would remake Lost World and make it as close to the book as possible. That's not always a good idea, just so you know. As close to the book as possible. The book is way more violent, thrilling than the movie. I guess that was just one part. And thrilling than the movie. Was that the only part? Yes, it was. Now, look, I have never read the book, but I do know this. Books are books, movies are movies. And directly translating as close as possible to the movie screen is not normally the best way to go because they're two different mediums. What often works in a book does not necessarily, sometimes it does, but oftentimes it doesn't translate quite as effectively. Steven Spielberg changed a lot about his Jurassic Park movie from the book, and I think the movie benefited from that. Last of Us adapted a lot and made some changes from the game and for the better. So, I mean, again, I can't really speak to that, Matthew, because I myself have not read the book, but I am considering how successful the movie was and its follow-up movies made over $1 billion and that they've got another one coming out. I don't think a good move would be to go back and remake that movie at this point. I don't think that would be the wise move at this choice. And again, I'm saying this having not read the book. I don't know if just being more like the book would make things better on the screen. Again, I can't say that I know that because I didn't read the book. But anyway, good observation. Thanks for sharing your thoughts on that, Matthew. Appreciate that, man. All right, next up. We've got Bobby Jackson who writes, hey, John. The other day, you mentioned with the exception of two things, you and Ann haven't watched any family-orientated animated shows together. But I thought you two watched Avatar and Korra together. No, actually, Ann didn't watch those with me. I mean, she sat down and watched like 1 or 2 episodes. So I took advantage of when the pandemic was going on and we were all quarantined and staying at home. I used that opportunity to watch Avatar for the first time because I'd never really watched. I mean, I think I watched like the first episode or something, struck me just as an immature kids show. So I didn't watch much more than half of the first episode before. So I decided, you know what? I said to myself, self, let's watch Avatar. And while it definitely is, especially the first season, a little more kiddie focused and a little more aimed at children, I still thought it was pretty good. And I found that as the show progressed after the first season, it started to get a bit deeper. And it started to evolve beyond just being very kiddie. There were certainly still in Avatar, there are certainly kiddie elements, sure. But it also got deeper. It got into heavier themes. It got into some more sophisticated dialogue. I mean, I really thought the show continuously grew. And I ended up really liking Avatar: The Last Airbender quite a bit. I enjoyed it quite a bit. But Anne never really watched it with me. She's poked in and out and watched a couple of episodes, but she never really got along. That's why when the new live action Netflix series came out, she didn't watch it with me because she goes, and so she's been saying for a while, you know what? I got to go back and watch Avatar. I'm like, yes, you do. By the way, for the record, I'm not a big fan of The Legend of Korra. I watched the whole series. I honestly didn't think The Legend of Korra was that good. And I know that makes some Avatar fans very, very angry because there are a number of Avatar fans that think Korra is even better than the first Avatar series. And I respect that. That's great. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just saying for me, I didn't really enjoy the show that much. I thought it undid a couple things. Anyway, I didn't hate it. Did not hate it. I just didn't really like it very much. All right. Next up, we go to, thanks a lot for that, Bobby. F8 writes, hey, John, I noticed philosopher Thanos had a brutal beheading while warrior Thanos had a peaceful dusting. Do you think this was done on purpose? No. Remember, Thanos's beheading at the beginning of Endgame was not about Thanos. It was about Thor, right? It was about Thor taking out his anger and his grief. It had nothing to do with the state that Thanos was in or anything like that. It was really more about Thor than it was about Thanos. When Thanos gets snapped, that's just the way people disappeared when they got snapped. You know, Tony snapped away Thanos and his army, and then he just snapped away the way everybody did. The way Spider-Man, the way Black Panther, the way Bucky, the way all of them just kind of went and then just turned into dust. So it really wasn't about Thanos either, about how he died. I mean, that's the way everybody died. Everybody who got snapped away that much. So honestly, no. I don't think the fact that, you know, now peaceful farmer Thanos met a violent ending while, you know, conqueror Thanos met and by the way, I wouldn't call getting snapped a peaceful death. It's not like he was sleeping and then just passed away. Like he literally had to sit there and be cognizant of his own existence being wiped away. I don't know that I would call that peaceful, to be honest with you. All right. Thanks for that, F8. Next up, Jackson writes, hey, John, today is my 22nd birthday. Happy birthday, man. I hope you have a great day. My first time writing in. Thank you for writing in. I've been watching since I was 11. Thanks for being there and teaching me so much about film and TV. You are a good man, John. Thanks, and bring on the filthy. Oh, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for deciding to spend part of your birthday here with us. And, you know, listen, I'm not a teacher. I'm just a fan. I'm a facilitator. I like to come here, get online, and just facilitate these conversations that we have and the conversations that happen in the live chat as well. So yeah, I'm just a facilitator. So thank you so much for being here and being part of our community and contributing to our community. We appreciate it. And again, happy birthday, Jackson. Thanks for being here. All right. Next up, Miguel writes, "Hey, John, since Fantastic Four is now confirmed to be in another universe in the 1960s, I felt like it would also be convenient for them to put the MCU X-Men there. Wouldn't have to worry about their whereabouts all this time." True, but I kind of talked about this a little bit, I think, on Thursday's show. On Thursday's show, we discussed a bit about the fact that it's one thing to have a micro example like the Fantastic Four, 4 characters who become, like Captain America, fish out of water, people out of time. It would be another thing to have an entire population of mutants be that, like, come from a 1960s world. Look, it might be that that's what they do. Okay? They might handle it that way. My guess, and it's just a guess, okay? It's just a guess. My guess is that the X-Men are going to come from the universe that Photon ended up in at the end of the Marvels. Because you remember how Photon went through the rift and ended up on the other side. And then she's on that space station where she meets that universe's version of her mother, and Beast Hank McCoy comes walking in with Kelsey Grammer's voice. Oh, I loved hearing Kelsey Grammer's voice come out of Beast. Because say what you want about X-Men 3, Hank McCoy's Beast was a really good shining part of that movie. Anyway, that aside. So I think that that's where the X-Men mutant population is going to come from. I think with Photon being over there and us meeting and being introduced to the X-Men, because remember, he also references Charles in there. I think that Earth is going to have an incursion with the 616 Earth. That's our Earth. And they will merge. I don't know that. It's just a guess. So I don't think they're going to come. I don't think we're going to get the X-Men from the 1960s universe that the Fantastic Four are in. I think we're going to get them from the one that we got a glimpse of at the end of the Marvels, which might end up being the biggest contribution that that movie makes to the overall MCU. All right. Next up, we've got, thanks for that, Miguel. Connor Dorian writes, "The upcoming It prequel TV series, Welcome to Derry, will also be a HBO original series instead of a Max original series. Yes, but you need to keep this in mind. It's the same thing. Remember, the guy who heads up Max is the same guy who heads up HBO. It's the same guy. Everything on HBO is also on Max, and pretty much vice versa. The terms HBO and Max are practically interchangeable. So for those of you who didn't catch it, this week some announcements got made about like the new Harry Potter series, about the incredible showrunners they have for that now. I think I'm starting to get excited about this Harry Potter series. I know nobody else is, but when you consider the history of HBO making excellent television and you look at the showrunners that they just brought on, people who did Ozark, people who did House of the Dragon, people who did Game of Thrones, people who did like shows like that are coming over to showrun this thing and produce. I'm actually kind of getting very intrigued by this. Anyway, so we got the Green Lantern series, the Harry Potter series, and stuff like that. It was announced that they're coming, but they're being labeled as HBO originals. As HBO originals. And as soon as they did that, I started getting some panicked people writing to me and saying, "John, we're not going to be able to watch the Green Lanterns on Max. I don't want to have to get cable. I have Max. Why can't I watch it on Max?" You will be able to watch it on Max. Don't worry. Everything HBO is also on Max. It's interchangeable. This is why I believe the reason that they're labeling these things HBO is because they have finally realized that the HBO brand name is a revered and respected, and most importantly, trusted brand name. You know, when people hear that a series is an HBO series, you just automatically assume it's probably going to be great, because that's what HBO is, the greatest ever. HBO is the greatest ever at making television. Period. In my opinion. When you go over historically, like most of the greatest shows of all time have been HBO shows. I mean, they just come from HBO. And I always thought, you guys remember how stupid I thought it was when they renamed HBO Max to just Max and they took out the most respected brand name in entertainment. They took HBO out of it. You remember how much I mocked that. I said, that is stupid. That is an idiotic thing for them to do. And what I think we're starting to see now, is that they're realizing the HBO brand is the much better brand. So instead of putting the Max brand on these shows, Lanterns, Harry Potter, Welcome to Derry, they're calling them HBO's Green Lanterns, HBO's Harry Potter. And this is why I ultimately think that before the end of the year, nobody told me this, I'm just guessing. I believe that by the end of the year, Max will be renamed again. And it'll be HBO something. Maybe it'll be HBO Max again. Maybe it'll be HBO Plus. Maybe it'll be HBO Plus Max. Maybe it'll be HBO Supreme. I don't know. But I believe that by the end of the year, they will rename Max again to just HBO something because that's the respected name. I like that. Saturday Morning Fan just had an idea. Just call it HBO WB. Yeah, or one of their old names. Drew put up one of the old names, HBO Go. HBO to the max, says Dominic Ray. I mean, because here's the thing. When they launched HBO Max, it was very confusing because some of you may not remember. But at the time, there was HBO proper. That was a cable network. There were two different mobile and streaming variants called HBO Go and HBO Now. I still couldn't tell you what the difference between the two of them was. But anyway, so you had HBO, HBO Go, HBO Now, and then HBO Max. And that was just a cluster. That was just a pure cluster. But now HBO Now is kind of gone. HBO Go, nobody talks about. That's a good name. Kane Legion just says HBO Prime. Cosmics call it Zaslav Plus. I like that. And the thing I mentioned before, the Peacock and Max bundle, call it Maxcock. That's the name. Gold right there. Too fast, too max, says Charlie the Unicorn. Yeah, so yes, the new It prequel series is going to be labeled HBO, but it doesn't actually change anything. The exact same people are still making it. It's still going to be on HBO and it's going to be on Max. So it doesn't really mean anything other than the fact that they're putting a different label on it. And it's probably the right move for them. All right. Thanks for that, Connor. Next up, another Connor. Connor Mullis writes, John, what did you think of The Boys' new episode? Loved it. One of my favorites in the whole show. I thought the new episode was great. I didn't think it was as good as, because what was the episode we just got? Episode 5? Yeah, it was episode 5. I don't think it was as good as episode 4. Like episode 4, I think is like one of the top 3 best episodes ever in the series. But yeah, this new one, you got Compound V chickens. I mean, I thought it was great. And you know what? This'll learn me, guys. Sometimes you just got to be learned. You got to be learnt. Captain got to teach stuff. At the beginning of this season, I did not like the whole Huey and his dad, Simon Pegg, and his mom and his dad's in the hospital. And I honestly did not care about that storyline. I thought it was kind of a waste. I admit, I thought it was kind of a waste of time. I was not interested in it. This episode was heartbreaking and beautiful and understandings like, yeah, you can get your dad back, but there's a price. And I thought it was ultimately ending with them letting Simon Pegg go, letting their dad go. And the death of Huey's dad, I took it all back. All the setup that we had in the previous episodes that I thought were a waste of time ended up building up to this and paying off in this absolutely brutal and beautiful moment that I absolutely adored. Now, something that I hope the show does not just gloss over was that there was a heavy, heavy, heavy price that got paid for Huey doing something he should not have done. We can all understand Huey's internal desire to save his dad. We all get it. But he knew from firsthand experience he shouldn't. Butcher didn't stop him, but told him, like, he left it up to you. You do what you need to do, but this won't go well. You should not do this. And something that I hope that the show doesn't gloss over, and we as viewers shouldn't gloss over, at least 5 people died as a result of what Huey did. We can't lose sight of that. Innocent people died as a result of Huey's decision. And that is something that I hope the show will address and make it be something that Huey's got to wrestle with and maybe even have consequences for. Because, yeah, it's, because there are multiple security guards, nurses, doctors, other patients. Remember that one patient guy was hitting on the nurse? That was cute. And then just like that, he's dead. He's just dead because of a decision that Huey made. And I really hope. Now, by the way, I want to touch on this. I see some people talking in the live chat about, wait, I haven't seen the episode yet. Guys, you know my philosophy about TV. TV is not movies. At most, you have 24 hours. You know, when a hockey game happens on TV, I can't run around for 4 days saying, nobody say what the score of the game was. I don't get to do that. As soon as the game's done, it's broadcast for everybody to see. It's on you to make sure you see it or make sure you stay away from all social media because everybody else has got to be able to talk about it. I give people a 24-hour grace period, but this show came out days ago. So we talk openly about shows that came out days ago. That's always been my position on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's always been my position. It still is. So if you don't want to know about something that happened in an episode of television that aired days ago, we got to be free to talk about it. We got to be open and free to talk about it. And so, yes, there's that. Anyway, back to the show. So much about that episode was great. The whole animals thing. I mean, I think it's very, very clear. Guys, what's the name of John Winchester again? I keep freezing on his name. I love him. He's one of my favorite character actors right now. He plays John Winchester in Supernatural. He was the comedian in Watchmen. Everybody in the live chat, help me out. I keep forgetting his name. Anyway, I thought days ago, we talked about it on the show like last week or so. I suspected Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Thank you, Millie. Millie was the first one to let me know it was Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Love Jeffrey Dean Morgan. You guys remember last week I said, I think Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character is not real. I mean, I think he was a real guy, but there's a reason every scene he's had with Butcher, it's only been him and Butcher. It's never been anybody else. and that I think he is a figment of Butcher's imagination because there's crazy stuff going on with Butcher's head. And after this episode, 100% convinced of it. 100% convinced of it after this episode, right? So I think he's just a figment of his imagination. So I think you're getting the angel with his wife and Jeffrey Dean Morgan's character as kind of playing to his darker nature about how to get things done. And I think they're both figments of his imagination, let's say. All right, by the way, guys, I am now going to turn off the super chats because the super chats are more than full. So I am now going to turn them off. So if you didn't get a question in, don't worry, come on back next time. We'll do another one next time. But we will get through all the ones, as long as they're appropriate. We'll get through all the ones that have been sent in so far. Okay, where do we leave off here? We now are going to get caught up with... we did Jackson, we did Miguel, we just did Connor. Yes, here we go. Picking up now things with Jerome. And Jerome writes, do you think actors in a TV show or movie franchise should be obligated not to change the way they look? Like, for example, getting plastic surgery? No. You are... I mean, your life is your life. Like, right? Like your job, they pay you to work 9 to 5. And what you do in your personal time is none of your job's business. You know, I say that, I mean, I don't know. It depends on the role and what the characters are like and all that kind of stuff. But no, honestly, no. And listen, if you make changes to yourself, maybe body weight, maybe you get really skinny, or maybe you get really heavy, or maybe you get really muscular, or you lose your muscle, or what you decide to shave your head, whatever. Maybe a show decides you no longer fit the character. And so we're going to move on to that's fine too. But I think what an actor does in their own personal life is totally up to them. Now, if choices they make them no longer fit the character, well, then a studio or a studio should be allowed to move on from that actor and replace them with another actor. But other than that, no, I think it's an actor's... Listen, acting is just like any other job. I mean, yes, it's unique and there are differences, but generally speaking, it's like any other job. Your employer doesn't get to tell you what you can and cannot do with your life when you're not at work. They may be able to tell you you got to wear a collared shirt and a tie when you're in the office, but when you go home, if you decide to get your hair cut, put in colored contact lenses, put on weight, lose weight, whatever, that's none of their business. None of their business. All right. Next up, Orange Hand writes, do you think a bad script can help a writer better understand their story's structure, pacing, etc., more than a great outline? No, I think both have equal value. You know, there was this one time that I shot a quick video in my car. I can't remember what it was for. It was a while ago. And in the video, you saw on my display in the car that I had been listening to the John Campea Show podcast. And like people went, oh my God, John, why are you listening to your own show? I'm like, because that's what you need to do. That's 100% what you need to do. If you're serious about trying to get better at what you do, what is the first thing that an NFL team does at their first meetings and practices after a game? They watch the film. They go back over, they watch the game, and they try to identify their own patterns. They try to identify their own habits. They try to identify what they did right, and they try to identify what they did wrong. So as they go into a week of practice, they can start to try to improve, right? Because you can't improve until you really know yourself. And people are surprised when I tell them I either watch or listen to every single episode of the John Campea Show. Because you very easily fall into I fall into bad communication habits all the time. I have to be able to watch my own show to recognize it, make improvements. I also need to observe the things that I do really well because I need to learn to reinforce those and all that kind of stuff. So both the good and the bad are are important teaching and learning tools. I think success and failure are both excellent teachers. I think we have a lot we can learn from our failures. I think we also have a lot we can learn from our successes. And so, no, I personally wouldn't say, Orange Hand, that they learn more from a bad script than from a good one. I think there's a lot of valuable lessons to learn from failure and a lot of valuable lessons to be learned from success. I think they're both great teachers, to be honest with you. All right, next. Mega Red writes, what did you think of The Quiet Place and the ending? Again, I really quite liked the new Quiet Place. I don't think it was as good as Quiet Place 1 and 2, but it's quite good. And I had a really good time. I thought the ending was perfect. I mean, really, once the movie starts, I kind of knew, like in the first 5 minutes of the movie, I kind of figured out, well, the movie's probably going to end this way or this way, you know, kind of that way. And I won't go into what the ending is for people who haven't seen the movie, but I thought it was the way the movie had to end. I thought it was a perfect ending for the movie. And yeah, I thought they did it well. All right. Next up. Let's see. Casinema writes, regarding the last episode of The Boys, did you notice the guy that plays Newman's boyfriend also played Dr. Pershing on The Mandalorian, also R.I.P. Hugh Sr.? You know what? I only did because somebody wrote into the John Campea Show before I had a chance to watch the episode, because it had only dropped a few hours earlier. This was back on Thursday. And mentioned that it's the same guy. So I was like, so yes, I clearly did recognize it then. It's like, what's a crossover? What if he's the same character? No, I didn't think that at all. But it was very cool to see him there again. And I'll be curious to see what kind of role he plays in the show moving forward. All right. Thanks for that, Casinema. Next up, Luke S. writes, one of two. In House of the Dragon, I personally thought, wait a minute, did I remember to turn off the super chats? Hold on a second. You know, let me answer this question first. Then I may not have turned off the super chats. I thought I did. Anyway, in House of the Dragon, I personally thought that the blood and cheese scene was done much better in the book. I don't understand why they changed so much of it. Well, I'll tell you why they changed it. Anyway, I'll get to it in a second. Example, Helena offers herself and has to choose which child has to be killed in the book. In the show, she just offers a necklace and points to the young prince. If they did it like the book, it would have been far more brutal and gave the Greens more sympathy. I don't necessarily agree. Here's the thing. One of the big reasons when I know a show or a movie is coming out based on a book, I will avoid that book because I don't want the book and my experience reading it to influence or color my experience watching the show or movie, because I want to be able to watch the show or movie completely on its own merits, right? Because listen, we have a natural prejudice for things that come first. When people watch a movie and then later read the book, more times than not, people will say they thought the movie was better. When people read a book before watching a movie, much more times than not, they'll say the book was better than the movie because it creates the baseline for what our experience is with that particular IP, right? So I don't like to do that. So as somebody who did not read the book and have no plans on ever reading the book, well, actually, that's not true. I might do that later on once the shows are done. But as somebody who did not read the book, I thought the scene was perfection. I thought that scene was absolutely perfect. I thought they made me feel the visceral violence of the situation, the horror of the situation, but they didn't cross a line into it to being gratuitous. They also showed a mother that was absolutely terrified. And it's like, I've heard some people online go, no, the mom wouldn't point out the son. You know what? Yes, she would. Knowing that if she didn't, she was about to lose both of her kids. Her pointing out the son was not about letting her son die. her pointing out the sun was her saving her daughter's life. Because if she didn't, she would have lost both of her kids. That was just the no-win situation she was in. So, I thought the scene was incredibly effective, incredibly powerful, extremely disturbing in all the ways they wanted it to be disturbing, and made a real significant impact on me, the viewer. Now, I say that as somebody who didn't read the book. And I'm just glad. Now, you telling me that the book does it different, I'm glad they did it the way they did it on the show. Again, that's just me, but that's why I don't like to read, because I don't want to have my experience of a movie or TV show be distorted by having read the book first. They're two different things. They're different mediums. They work on different levels. And I thought the way they did it in the show, this is just me personally. I'm not discrediting your perception of it. Not at all. I'm just giving you my personal experience with it. For me personally, I thought the way they did it was very consistent to the character, was very consistent to the world that they've built on the screen. I just thought it was great the way it was, and I'm glad they didn't do it any differently. But that's just me. That's just me. Maybe I would be singing a different song, Luke, if I had read the book myself. All right. With that down, let's get on to Casinema. Writes, also, this man is in no condition to fuck a sheep is one of the funniest lines Frenchie's ever said, and just one of the funniest of the whole show. When he said that, I literally had to pause the show. I had to pause. You would think with the style of humor in The Boys that after 4 seasons, I would start to get a little numb to their comedic style, or at least get used to it. And yet The Boys continuously comes up with ways and lines that always catch me off guard. And the way Frenchie, in such a dead straight, like straight man, deadpan, cold fact, says, this man is in no condition to fuck a sheep. I was like, I had one. You ever have a gasp laugh where you're laughing so hard? Because when you're laughing, you're expelling air, but you're laughing so hard, you're actually fighting for a moment to just breathe in. And so you get that, like, you know what I mean? I had one of those gasp laughs. Like I laughed so hard, I'm like just desperately trying to take in air. And I had to pause the show because I was laughing. So this man is in no condition to fuck a sheep. It's like, oh yeah, because we know when a guy is in the right condition to fuck a sheep and when he's not. Anyway, I agree with you. I thought that was a brilliant moment. Thought it was really funny. All right. Luke S. Oh, we already got that part from Luke S. Mike Vetter writes, although this year's box office hasn't been great yet, I believe it's been far from bad. March alone was a great month. Dune, Kung Fu Panda, Godzilla X Kong, even Ghostbusters had a decent opening weekend. You know, I didn't include Ghostbusters in there, but literally Ghostbusters did much better than I thought it would. Right? Let's be honest. Ghostbusters didn't do great, but where did it go? Where is Ghostbusters? There it is. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It ended up having a $45 million opening, and it ended up making about $201 million at the box office. Not great, but frankly, better than I thought it would. And also, didn't deserve much better. Like, the new Ghostbusters wasn't bad, but it was not nearly as good as the last one that came out a couple of years ago. I thought that one was a much better movie, but still whatever. But yeah, I think that one is another one that showed like a movie that kind of outperformed what I thought it would. It's another good example of it. All right. Thanks for that, Mike. Next up, we've got Donaldo Martinez, who writes, I just watched Detroit for the first time, and it was fantastic. Shocking that Will Poulter didn't get an Oscar nomination for that role. Will Poulter was so good in that. It was also, I think, one of the best movies of the year. And I remember when I watched it, I said that it reminded me, I'm not saying it was as good as, okay, I'm not. I'm just saying it reminded me of the way that I felt watching Schindler's List. In the sense of I'm watching this movie and I'm like, this movie is fantastic, but I don't think I can ever watch it again because it's so disturbing. Academy Award winning director Catherine Bigelow did such a great job with that movie. And the cast was, first of all, Poulter was great in it. Anthony Mackie, John Boyega. I mean, the cast is just phenomenal in it. It didn't, if I remember correctly, it didn't do great at the box office. I don't think it did great at the box office, but I thought it was a really good movie. And again, I don't think I'll be able to watch it again, but Will Poulter was a revelation in that. To me, that was the movie. Detroit was the movie that made me like go, oh my, this Will Poulter kid. Wow. Like that's, and I don't think it was a travesty that he didn't get an Academy Award nomination, but I think he could have got one. I think he could have got one easily. All right. Glad you liked it, Donaldo. Suthius writes, one thing I've noticed throughout all the Star Wars movies is that the Jedi suck at fighting. There's only but a handful that are truly exceptional. I don't know that that's true. I don't think that's true. You know, one of the things that really gets me about The Acolyte was that May really is not that good. Right? Like, the show starts with her fighting Jedi Master Trinity, Carrie-Anne Moss. And Carrie-Anne Moss just hands her ass to her. Like, literally dominates that fight every step of the way. She's just ahead of and dominating that fight. And the only way May ends up killing her is because, like, she pulls a stunt where Carrie-Anne Moss has to make the decision to either protect herself or save the innocent bartender's life. She chooses to expose herself and leave herself exposed by saving the bartender's life. May takes advantage of that and kills her. But really, that entire fight, Carrie-Anne Moss just beats her ass. Then she fights Jedi Master Soul. Again, Jedi Master Soul beats her ass. She's thoroughly dominated in that fight. Like, thoroughly dominated in that fight. She is in every way inferior to Jedi Master Soul. Then, at some point, she starts to fight the Padawan. Now, granted, it's an exceptional Padawan in Daphne Keene, and she does get in some good licks, but even ultimately loses that fight. May's not that great. And I kind of appreciate that. And as much as I hate the show, and I've tapped out of the show, I'm not going to watch it anymore. But the one thing I'll kind of appreciate, I appreciate about the show is that May wasn't some universally dominant force. Like, she is the main antagonist, sort of the main antagonist, but she ain't as good as she thinks she is. And that's one of the very few interesting things I think about The Acolyte. They had a couple of upsides. I think Soul is a great character. I think the combat was fantastic. And I'll give it credit where credit's due in that I think making May be not as dangerous as May thinks she is, I think was an actual interesting part of the show. I think it was an interesting part of the show. But I would not go so far. Remember, she's fighting Jedi. Jedi are pretty tough. Even the not so great ones. The Jedi are pretty tough. And when we see them losing, it's usually to overwhelming forces against them. So I'll just say that, Suthius. All right. Suthius also writes, are you also on the bandwagon that Kessler is a manifestation of the parasites squirming around in Butcher? Oh yeah, 100%. I've mentioned that already. Or maybe there's two, the other being Becca. I mean, it is possible that there are multiple worms inside of him and each one of them represents different things. Or it could just be an overall condition, right? But yeah, I thought before this newest episode, I mentioned it on the show, that I thought before this episode that I was starting to suspect that Jeffrey Dean Morgan was a figment of his imagination. After this week's episode, I'm 100% convinced of it. I think it would be a really neat twist if he wasn't, but I think that's pretty much where they're at right now. All right. Andy writes, I'm glad you're doing an open mic today because I could use you as an escape from the past contentious 2 days. Thank you for all you do. Oh, no problem, man. I hope whatever has happened in your last couple of days turns out better, whatever it is. But that's the great thing about movies and the communities that talk about them is they provide a great opportunity for us to just get away. All right. Next up. Thanks for that, Andy. YT Pump Life writes, does the MCU actually make Storm an Omega level? I don't know. I mean, listen, one of the criticisms that I've had about the MCU, even in their height of glory, right? And I love the MCU, but other than it's constantly a fake death universe, is it seems like more and more like every one of their characters is the most powerful. You know, Wanda's the most powerful. Captain Marvel's the most powerful. Thor's the most powerful. Hulk's the most dangerous. Like everything gets so hyped up that you make the temptation is that every new character you bring in, that there's a law of diminishing returns. And there's a temptation to say, look how powerful this character is, right? So in the comics, they've really evolved Storm to be not just an Omega level mutant, but like an elite Omega level mutant, which is kind of ridiculous to say because Omega level is Omega level, but like they have made her like truly one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel comics. She is truly hyper Omega level. She takes out other Omega level mutants. I don't think they do that. At least I hope they don't do that in the movieverse, just because they've had such a trend of making, now this is the most powerful person. No, this is the most powerful. No, look how powerful this person is. And I think they need to reel that tendency in a little bit. Like, I think make her a little bit more powerful than what they gave us with Halle Berry's Aurora in the original X-Men movies. Like, make her a little bit more powerful than that, but I wouldn't make her like the god of mutants or anything in the movies. They just seem to do that a little bit too much right now. All right. Next up. Ray Loves Trenchcoats writes, we all know why you didn't like The Quiet Place as much as the first two. You hated the cat. Oh yeah, I did hate the cat. Also, go Cowboys. Yes, Cowboys, go! Humiliate yourself again, as you do so reliably every single year. I gotta say, the only person I know who hates cats as much as or more than I do is Anne. Anne really doesn't like cats at all. Even Anne and I had to go, that was an okay cat. You know it's a movie cat because it's not real. But that cat in that movie, that's a pretty okay cat. I'll give the cat in A Quiet Place Day One a pass. And I don't often give those filthy rodents known as cats a pass, but I will give this one a pass. But only because it was very fictitious. No cat is actually like that. But it was a good cat. It was a good cat. I like the cat in the movie. I did. You don't hear me say that very often. All right. Next up, we got Jerome who writes, do you feel it is distracting that Starlight and Mother Milk clearly look different than they did in the last seasons? I'll tell you straight up right now. I don't think Starlight looks any different than she did in previous episodes. I just straight up don't. I hear people talk about it and I go, what? And I look, I'm like, I don't see it. I don't see it. But that's just me. Other people say they see it. That's fine. I absolutely do not. I think Milk looks a little bit different than he did before, but is it distracting? Not in the least. Not even, honestly, it's more distracting hearing people talk about it than it is actually in the show. Like in the show, like I admit with Mother's Milk, because of his weight loss and stuff, I admit that it took me just a quick second to confirm in my head, oh, this is milk. It's milk. Okay. but it's not distracting in the least. It's literally the people who do nothing but talk about it, I find is far more of a distraction. That's distracting. In and of the show in and of itself, to be honest with you, Jerome, I don't think is even remotely distracting. All right, next up. Jerome writes, what do you think The Boys is doing the Frenchie? That's a good question. You know, we were just talking about how he had the line of the season so far. This man is in no condition to fuck a sheep. It was like one of the great lines ever. But I feel like with Frenchie, we're starting to retread ground that we've already kind of gone over with him in his character arc already. You know what I'm saying? I feel like some of this and is struggling with his substance addiction and all. I just feel like this is ground we've covered. And I hope now, I think it's an interesting storyline that his new love interest is somebody that he murdered that person's family. I think that's a very interesting story hook. But other than that, I really hope to see them move past this stuff a little bit more quickly, because I like seeing there are characters that come across better when they're tortured. Frenchie is a character that I feel like we need to be at a place where now we're in season 4 that we're moving past it. And I'd like to just see him back on some solid feet, to be honest with you. We've been there. We've seen Frenchie struggle. I think I'd like to see him having a little bit of stability now and get to really explore his character more. Anyway, that's just me. We'll see what now remember, I also didn't like what they were doing with Huey's dad. And then it turns out the payoff was amazing. So maybe they've got some kind of plan with Frenchie at this point, Jerome. All right, next up. Dexter writes, hey, John, I find it odd that the changes at Marvel to prioritize quality over quantity, etc. Why not do the same at Lucasfilm? It's already a mess over there, and now they're doing a Rise of Skywalker sequel. Well, okay, Dexter, this is what I would say. Pump your brakes. We haven't seen anything yet. Right? We have not seen anything yet. The Acolyte has been in the works for years, right? This is not a new thing. We have not yet seen the results, and we won't see the results of the new mandates that Bob Iger has handed down for at least another 1.5 or 2 years. Like the impact of the new mandates go into effect right away behind the scenes, but we as the fans, we don't actually get to see it for years. So, look, I think them making another Rey movie, despite the fact that I adore Daisy Ridley, and in principle, I like the Rey character, but I think it's a completely terrible idea for them to do a Rey movie. I do, but there's a lot of things that I thought were terrible ideas. I thought making a Flash TV show was a terrible idea. I ended up loving it, at least, for the first bunch of seasons. I thought making a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Mutant Mayhem movie was stupid. Guess what? I ended up loving it. All I'm saying is, who's to say they're not doing the same thing at Lucasfilm? They very well could be. The ideas and the pitch they have for this new Rey movie might be awesome. I mean, I think it's a bad idea, but you got to leave room for the idea that it might turn out awesome, like certain other things that I thought were bad ideas. And I thought Harley Quinn was a stupid idea for a show. I absolutely love it. I thought Arcane was a dumb looking thing for a thing. It's now my favorite animated show of all time. I'm just saying, before we criticize the results of something, let's wait for those results to actually come around. Like, I can criticize the decision, but I can't criticize the results because the results haven't happened. So as fans, this is go, okay, I think this is a good idea, but it might turn out bad. And I think this is a bad idea, but it might turn out good. Okay, I have my feelings about what's a good idea and what's a bad idea, but don't make commentary on the results of those things until there are actual results for us to give commentary on, right? I did not like the idea of a Rogue One movie. Because you know how I feel about prequel stuff. And Rogue One is one of the best things they've done. I think Rogue One and Andor are the two best things Star Wars has done since Return of the Jedi. So let's actually see what happens. They're doing it. It's not what I would do. I think it's a mistake. But let's now see how the results turn out before we get to wrapped up into that stuff. All right. Mega Red 555 writes, I agree with the whole season dump thing. The Bear is too special to just drop all at once. Gotta let it simmer. I 100% agree. It is such a special show. The Bear is such a special show. The way they've been able to do that, and by the way, they're able to do it with relatively short episodes. Something that most shows on streaming that go with the shorter format are not able to do. Somehow the Bear finds a way to do it, and it's magnificent. And it is absolutely a show that should be savored and celebrated for months. I mean, that's the thing. Again, I know I go back to this all the time, but it's a very valid point. When WandaVision came out, it was the number one topic of conversation for months. Every single day. The number one thing that people were writing in to talk about every single day for months was what's going on with WandaVision. What's going on with WandaVision? What's going on with WandaVision? For months. Contrast and contrary, when Punisher Season 2 came out, say on Netflix. Punisher Season 2 on Netflix is great, by the way. I love that season. It came out. We had a few people write in about it for a couple of days, and then it was gone. Nobody talked about it again. Nobody wrote in and talked about it again. Same thing, and I said this would happen with Fallout, and a bunch of people said, no, John, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, this is what's going to happen with Fallout, because Amazon made the decision to drop Fallout all at once. And what I said, when that show drops, if it's good, because the reviews were really good before it came out, I said, if it's good, everybody's going to talk about it and be really excited about it for a couple of days, and then we're not going to hear anybody write in about it. When's the last time anybody wrote in a question about Fallout? Seriously, after 4 or 5 days, like the first few days that Fallout dropped, everybody was talking about it. Everybody was talking about it for the first couple of days. And then it, poof, disappeared. Nobody talked about it again. Because anybody who did care to watch the show watched it immediately. There was no more word of mouth about it to get new people excited about it. See, that was the great thing about like Mandalorian season 1 and 2 or WandaVision and shows like that, that each week would come and people would buzz and buzz and buzz. Then other people would hear about it and go, oh, well, they only had the first episode. I can get caught up. Or, hey, they only had the third episode. I can get caught up. And more people. And that's why week after week after week on WandaVision and shows like that, the viewership got higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher because everyone was talking about everything. The Bear should have that treatment too. I expect that this week on the John Campea Show, I'm just making a guess, between Monday and Wednesday, I think we'll get a bunch of people writing in to talk about the Bear. And then come Thursday, Friday, certainly by the following Monday, I don't think anybody's going to be talking about it anymore. Now, Kane Legion is repeating a fallacy. Fallout had massive ratings. It didn't, actually. It didn't. Because here's the thing. When shows drop all at once, you know how streamers calculate their ratings? Here's how streamers calculate their ratings. They calculate their ratings by number of minutes viewed. Okay? You following me? They calculate by the number of minutes viewed. What do you think the impact of that will be if you drop one episode, one 45-minute episode of a show compared to another that drops 8 episodes of 45 minutes to an hour episodes. You're going to get a number that is extremely high because people like you and me, we didn't watch one episode of Fallout. We watched 7 episodes of Fallout. And so the viewership numbers come. The first 24 hours, first 7 days, those things. The numbers are massively big for a good show like Fallout. The numbers are massively big because you're literally it's not just one episode that dropped, it's 8 or 6 or 10 or 12. Compared to something like, I don't know, for argument's sake, Ahsoka, I'm just using Ahsoka as an example, that dropped 1 episode that week. So there's only a certain number of minutes that people can watch. The more telling numbers, because that's the one that streamers like to talk about. They talk about first 24 hours, first 74 hours, first 7 days. Those are the numbers, and these numbers are huge. They're explosive, because they're dropped the whole season. And so you've literally got 10 hours of it that you can watch. But when you go over and look at the Nielsen numbers on the streaming shows, and you don't just look at the first 24, 72, and 7 days, you actually look at the lifespan over 6 months or over a year, a lot of these single week episode shows get bigger viewership numbers in minutes because they had longer lifespans. Now, I'm not taking away from the fact that Fallout was a hit. Absolutely. I'm not saying that it wasn't. Okay? Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. Fallout was a big success for them. Absolutely it was. But when compared to shows that are also huge successes that say have a week-to-week release, yeah, the first 24, 72, 7-day numbers don't look nearly as impressive. But when you look at them in the scope of like 3, 4, and 6 months, the numbers become differently proportioned. It's a little bit different. I think that's why, like King Daddy Goat in the live stream saying Stranger Things, that's why I think we've seen, and what I predicted this years ago, you guys know that I did, that we are continuing to see Netflix experiment more and more with breaking up their releases. Like, they're not doing week to week so much now, but like say Arcane, they dropped it in 3 different pieces. Stranger Things is being released in multiple parts. They did that with the final 2 seasons of Lucifer. Remember that on Netflix? They broke it up. They had season 7, part 1, then a break, let everybody buzz about it, talk about it, then bring part 2. They did that with Stranger Things as well. They start to spread it out. Netflix is starting to experiment with spreading these releases out because they know they'll ultimately get much bigger numbers if they do. And then I think over the next couple of years, you're going to see them start to break them up even more. Like instead of Stranger Things having a part 1 and part 2 in a season, and I know Stranger Things is heading into its final season, but I'm just saying as an example, like they would put out a season of Stranger Things in 3 or even 4 parts. I think you're going to see Netflix continue to expand that because they're recognizing that the more they break up the seasons, almost episodic, the more they break up the seasons, their overall viewership numbers get bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on. So we'll see how that all does. That's a good example. Yeah, Daniel J saying Cobra Kai in 2 parts. Netflix used to exclusively be dump the entire series of something all at once. They're experimenting on more and more and more shows now of breaking it up because they're starting to recognize the more we spread it out, the bigger our numbers are. So yeah. Oh yeah, that's another good Mr. Saturday Morning fan. Saying Invincible. They also did it with Invincible. They broke that one up. You're starting to see that, and I think that's going to become more and more the norm, I think. All right. Andy writes, 1 of 3. Firecracker's legal name is Misty Tucker Gray. Her initials are MTG. I didn't realize that, which Eric purposely did as he confirmed this character was based on a congresswoman of the same initials. Also, the film Firecracker, Lord Soldier in The Boys is a disturbing title as some Christians see themselves like that in a belligerent way. But it's even more scary to see that when being told to beat Cameron Coleman to death, not that Coleman was a good man, Firecracker was more than happy to do it. Yeah, listen, it's the thing about The Boys is it has always been from episode 1, season 1, a major political commentary show. Actually, most shows are, but The Boys is. They just, in the first couple of seasons, they were a little bit more subtle about it, but it was always there. There was a great headline in Forbes. Not that Forbes always does the best job, but there was a really good headline in Forbes like a week or two ago that said, some of the audience are just starting to realize that The Boys has always been about them. Which is a kind of funny. I mean, look, I think The Boys satire is great. I definitely Firecracker. The real scary thing about Firecracker is how accurate Firecracker is to a lot of real world stuff. The thing about Firecracker is that she represents a disturbingly very real segment of people who call themselves Christians, and like people like MTG and stuff like that, that are radical bastardizations and heretical representations of Christianity. And this is the thing that bothers me a lot is that because there are so many people out there, and I'll just get on my soapbox for a second here, guys, and then I'll get off of it. But it's one of the biggest things that bothers me is that unfortunately, a lot of people in the world today, they think what Christianity is the thing that these heretics and blasphemers like MTG and her ilk represent. This faith of hatred and bigotry and obnoxiousness and vileness and despicableness and evil. And so a lot of people get turned off of the notion of what I'm not saying that anybody needs to be a Christian. I'm just saying that people's even opinions of Christianity are often painted by these vile, blasphemous heretics who are the ones saying we're Christians, much like Firecracker in The Boys and a lot of the other characters in The Boys. When in reality is those people, and quite often those that follow them, are the farthest thing from authentic Christianity. Like they are the farthest thing from what actual Christianity is. And I wish, anyway, that's part of the reason why I despise those people so much, is because they blatantly misrepresent a faith I have a lot of love for. But that thus endeth the soapbox preaching of Campea today. And let's move on to some things here, shall we? Let's get back to some other stuff. Anyway, thanks for pointing that stuff out, Andy. All right. Next up, we've got King Tantic, who writes, will you do a top films of the year so far? In my opinion, the best films are Dune Part 2, Challengers, and The Bike Riders. Kinds of Kindness tonight for me. Have not seen Kinds of Kindness yet. But yeah, because we're getting at the end of June. Yeah, you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, King Tantic, because we're almost at the halfway part of the year. Actually, yeah, I think this week we will do a segment on what I consider to be, because it's all subjective, what I consider to be the best films of the year so far. It is, I totally forgot about that man, I know we say this every year. I know that we do. How quickly is 2024 going? How fast is 2024 going? It is great. We are halfway through the year. Anyway, thanks for bringing that up. Yes, I will do that this week, man. Thanks for putting it on my radar. Appreciate that. All right. Let's see here. We have Sepulfan who writes, have you had the chance to watch The Bears? You mean The Bear season 3 yet? Honestly, I love the first 2 episodes, pacing myself. Again, I have not had a chance to start watching it myself. My wife watched the entire season in a day, and she loved it. She thought it was great. Once she realized that wasn't the series finale. Once she realized that wasn't the series finale, then she felt much better about it. But I myself have not had a chance to watch it yet. I will get around to it, but like I said earlier, because they dropped all the episodes at once, I don't feel... And again, I'm not saying this is right for me to feel this way. I'm just recognizing this is how I feel. That I don't feel any sense of urgency to get around to it because they just dropped all the episodes at once. So I don't know, but I will because I love the show. If you're not watching The Bear, you totally should. It's fantastic. And I'll look forward to getting around to it. All right. Thanks for that, man. Next up, Christopher Brickner writes, he says, one of two. In the Acolyte episode 5, I was annoyed Soul didn't kill the highly dangerous Sith who'd killed several Jedi because he was unarmed when he still has the Force. I mean, in Revenge of the Sith, when Anakin killed Dooku, Dooku was literally disarmed by Anakin and physically couldn't fight back anymore. Okay, yes, but remember, Obi-Wan did not approve of Anakin killing an unarmed Dooku. And it was Palpatine. Do it. Yes. It's the voice I hear in my head when I open the freezer. And I say, I've got this carton of ice cream in here. Do it. Yes. Do it. And then I grab the carton of ice cream out. Anyway. So do keep that in mind. Do keep that in mind. That it's not what he was supposed to do. And if I recall, I don't know why I just pulled out a mint while I'm doing a freaking show. I don't know why I did that. And now I got this mint in my mouth. I just looked down. I love these. They're delicious. These Icebreaker Duo Watermelon Mints. They're not sponsors of the show. And I just popped one in my mouth. Don't know why I did that. Shouldn't have. Should not have done that. Later when I'm reviewing the show, I'll go, oh, there's something I did that I shouldn't have done. Sorry, guys. You're just going to have to put up with this thing for the next 5 minutes or so. Anyway, if memory serves, I think Anakin went on to do a number of different things he probably shouldn't have done. I can't remember quite exactly what they were, but I got this feeling this Anakin Skywalker kid did other things that were really not good things to do. So that probably isn't a good example. Yeah. Soul should have ended that guy. He just murdered a whole bunch of Jedi. But he has his principles. And Anakin breaking a principle is not a great example to talk about why he should have. Anyway, let's see. What else? I'm trying to chew the mint now to get it out of my mouth. Gorgira writes, are you going to watch Ultraman Rising on Netflix? Probably not. I'm not trash talking it. Just really not my thing. We had Ray talk about it on the show, though. He discussed it, but I'm probably not going to. Christopher Richter writes, which is why Anakin killing Dooku was bad. Yeah, exactly my point, Christopher. Exactly my point. Yes, 100%. All right, Chris R. writes, Simon Pegg's acting brought me to tears in this episode. Oh! Listen, we all know how cool Simon Pegg is. Right? We all know how cool Simon Pegg is. I think we sometimes forget just how good of an actor he is. See if I can find this. I'm not sure I can. We forget just how good of an actor he is. And how wonderful he is and all that kind of stuff. That he's not just a fun guy. He is... oh, I misspelled something. Hold on, let me see if I can get this. I want to try to see if I can find this thing because I'm not sure I can. Yeah. He is a wonderful, wonderful actor. And I think he doesn't often get the chance to highlight just how good of an actor he is because we just know him as such cool guy and all this kind of stuff. I had the big privilege and opportunity. I've had the chance to actually hang out with Simon on a number of occasions because Edgar Wright was gracious enough to have me come in and moderate a number of openings for his movies because he's fantastic and everything. And Simon was obviously part of that a lot. Simon also came to this. He came to a couple of the parties that I threw. This is one of the parties that I threw in Santa Monica one night and us hanging out. I love Simon. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And his performance in this episode was really great. I mean, he made you feel it, right? It wasn't just a notion, right? Oh, the dad's got to give up his life so he's not this monster. Okay, that's a nice notion. But you need an actor who can put a performance into it that makes us feel it. And Simon Pegg absolutely made us feel it. And that's why he's so good, man. That's why he's so good. Anyway, let's see. Next up, we've got, and our final question of the day comes to us from Sam Fisher, who writes, apparently Paul Walter Hauser got the offer for embarrassment while filming the Take Off Your Shoes podcast. They just released that clip. Super cool. Well, actually, they didn't just release it because we've had people over the last couple of weeks writing in to say that Paul Walter Hauser actually he didn't get the offer. He got the confirmation that he got the role because he submitted himself for it. But he was actually in the middle of doing a podcast, this Take Off Your Shoes podcast, when he actually got the message that he'd been getting. Now, listen, as much as I love Paul Walter Hauser, and as great as I think Inside Out 2 is, I believe, unless I'm wrong, that he literally had one line. I believe embarrassment, other than like little sounds, I think the character literally had one line in the movie. So it's not like that's the thing that elevates the Emmy-winning actor Paul Walter Hauser is the one line he did on this. But yeah, some people saying no, they say they got the offer. Yes, that's because you get the official offer because you won. You submitted yourself for it. You auditioned for it. You got your agent to go out to try to get it. And then if you win, you get the offer. So that's anyway. Yeah. So I love Inside Out 2. Paul Walter Hauser is an Emmy-winning actor. When I think of the greatness of Paul Walter Hauser's acting, I'm not going to be thinking of Inside Out 2 because again, he had like one line. He had one line. All right. Hey guys, listen, I still got a little bit of time here. So while that did it for all the super chat questions, I'm going to take a few questions just from you guys in the live chat. Do me a favor, look down in the live chat. If you have a question, do me a favor and format it like this. See the one I just put up in the live chat? Put in capital letters, question, colon, and then your question. That way I know it's you asking me a question and not just people talking amongst themselves. So if you have a question, I'm not going to read them all. I'm going to pick out a couple before I put this thing to bed. Okay, let's see. We're going to start off with Josh, who writes, what did you think of the Keanu Reeves film Knock Knock? Is that the one where the two girls show up? Disturbing. Not great, but pretty disturbing at the same time. A. Marcellus writes, are you excited for Batman Caped Crusader? Honestly, no. I'm curious about it. I'm curious about the show. I'm definitely going to check it out. But I would be lying if I said I'm excited about it at this point. We'll see how I feel once I get a chance to watch, once I get a chance to watch a couple of episodes. Okay, let's see here. Sir Malstom says, thoughts on the new Deadpool 3 trailer? It's basically the same as all the others. We're basically getting the same footage over and over again. Now, this time they showed us a little bit more with Sabretooth, because Sabretooth got revealed in like a lot of the set photos. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really, really good. But again, most of it was stuff that we've already seen in the stuff. Poisonous Plant writes, favorite underrated actor. It sounds ridiculous to say it because he's gotten Academy Award nominations. People sleep on Chiwetel Ejiofor. Chiwetel Ejiofor, I think that, and hold a second, the mechanic, Ben Foster is the other guy that I think is a tragically underrated actor. So Chiwetel Ejiofor and Ben Foster, I think, are the two most underrated actors in the business. I think they both could have, if they had the right roles, I honestly think Chiwetel Ejiofor and Ben Foster would both have multiple Academy Awards. I really, really do. I think they're all that good. All right. Charlie saying, what's your most anticipated movie in the next 6 months? Oh, obviously Deadpool. Deadpool is my most, Dune was clearly very high on my list too, but Deadpool is my most anticipated film for the year. Let's see. What's next? Spying Mentor says, have you seen Bike Riders yet? Nope. Still haven't seen it. Because when it came out, Ann and I were out of state for that weekend. And then this week had been pretty busy. Then last night I was out of town. So I have not. And then tonight, Ann and I are going to a big industry party. So I'm not going to have a chance to see it tonight. Hopefully tomorrow. I mean, listen, I was all stoked to see it last year when it was supposed to come out. And then at the last minute, they dropped it from its release date. They pushed it a bunch of months into this year. So I have, even though I'm super excited about watching this movie, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I've not had a chance to watch it yet. Let's see here. Millie writes, why does Amazon release the first 3 episodes of The Boys all at once and then do the rest weekly? You know what? Because it's brilliant and other shows are starting to do it as well. Here's why it's brilliant. When you launch a new show or season of a show, I think it's really good to get the audience truly hooked in. Really hooked in. And I think the best way to do that is by dropping multiple episodes to start. Now, I just went on this big diatribe about how the fact that I think, week to week releases is what's best. And I do. But I really do think there was a show recently. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember if it was Ahsoka or maybe one of the Marvel shows. I can't remember which one. But I remember the first episode dropped. And I remember the first episode didn't get me hooked. It's like it set something up, but it didn't let me get hooked in. This would have been a great opportunity to launch with the first couple of episodes. And so I think what they do is a number of shows, because we just had, I think The Acolyte dropped the first 2 episodes at once, even though the show was bad. I mean, that was the right move, drop the first 2 episodes at once. You drop a couple of episodes to start, get everybody hooked in, then you go to the week by week. Now, some shows like House of the Dragon, where their episodes are like an hour plus or longer each episode, you don't really need that because you got like a full hour, 10 minutes to get everybody entrenched in that world. But for something like The Boys, Marvel stuff, Star Wars stuff, I think it's a really good idea to drop with the first couple of episodes to really get the audience entrenched, and then you go to the week by week. So I think that's why they do that. Let's see here. Lorenzo writes, what do you think of the first Michael Bay Transformers movie? It's the only good Transformers movie he made. I mean, I liked the first one. I did. I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was really fun. I think they all went really downhill really fast after that, but I personally really do like the first one. Let's see. Question from Deverick, who writes, what do you think about Ryan Coogler taking over Blade? Any good director, ex-director in X movie, any good director. Ryan Coogler is a very good director. So if I found out tomorrow he was taking over Blade, I'd be excited. Jordan Peele is a very good director. So if I found out he was taking over Blade, I'd be very excited. Denis Villeneuve is probably maybe the best director in the world right now. If I found out he was taking over Blade, I would be very excited. So yeah, as long as it's a really good director, I'll be excited. Ryan Coogler definitely falls into that category. Let's see. Where are we? Question. There's a UFC tonight. Pereira or Yuri? I got Alex. He won the first fight. I think Yuri is a beast, but I think Alex is kind of unstoppable right now. So I would take him tonight. Let's see. IMJMS writes, question, you think Twisters is a success? Well, it hasn't come out yet, so I can't say if it's a success or not. Do I think it will be successful? Probably. I mean, we're going to talk about this on the John Campea Show on Monday, but they just put out the tracking numbers, and they're saying it's going to make over $50 million on its opening weekend. If it does, that's better than I thought it was going to do. So it looks like it's on a good path, so we'll see. Let's see. Daniel writes, your thoughts on the Superman suit with the briefs? Okay, everybody knows I do not like the red underwear on Superman's costume. Never have. I like Henry's approach. Well, obviously, Henry didn't design the costume, but I like Henry's Superman costume. No frickin' red underwear. I do not like the red underwear. That being said, I'll get over the red underwear. But other than the red underwear, I think it's a good looking costume. It's always so funny to me. Like, we can be a really weird bunch. So if a costume comes out that is like really not comic accurate, like, you know me, I don't give a crap what a costume looks like. Black Lightning was the ugliest costume ever in the history of superhero movies or television. Dumbest, most idiotic, stupid looking costume ever. You know how much that mattered? Nothing, because the show was great. I really liked that show. And the ugliness of the costume didn't take anything away. The costume does not matter at all. No, John, it does, because I should. No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. You look at it for a second, you go, wow, or you go, ooh, whatever, and then you move past it, and then you just get into the movie whether it's good or not. That being said, comic book stuff is weird because sometimes like a costume will come out and it has no reflection of what it might have looked like in any of the comic book iterations. People go, it should look more like a comic. And then you do get a costume by the way, James Gunn, who knows way more about Superman comics than any of the people crying about it. Then they put out a costume that is such an accurate reflection of different iterations and eras of Superman in the comics. Like every aspect of that costume comes directly from a different era or iteration of the comic. So he puts that into a costume. So if it's not like the comics enough, people go, oh, they should have made it more like the comic. And when it's completely structured around the comics, then it's like, oh, I don't like it. It's not whatever. I think other than the stupid, ugly red underwear, I think the costume looks great. I think the costume looks really good. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see whether the movie is good or not. I don't know, but you know, we'll see. All right. You know what, guys? That'll do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you guys so much for spending part of your Saturday here with me. Good to have all you guys here. Don't forget, come on back and join us on Monday. Looking forward to it. And of course, we're looking forward to bringing our friend Paris in, who's going to be joining us on Monday. Again, she's not a pundit. She's worked at Lionsgate and BET, entertainment correspondent, all that kind of stuff. She's not coming in as a pundit per se. She's coming in to make our format better. And I think to make the shows run more smoothly, raise the energy level, make everything quicker. I think she's going to do a great job. And I know the month that she's coming to do it with us is going to fly by really fast, but hopefully she's going to be able to help us really figure out our formatting stuff. And then after she leaves, we can figure out how to make that more of a permanent part of our show. Anyway, we'll look forward to seeing you guys on Monday. Thanks a lot for joining me, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.